I thought this would be a fun video. It's called So You're Having an Existential Crisis.
Here's a sad idea.
Let's hear
What
it.
if everything you did, driving to work, buying new Jordans, playing games,
Buy
donating
new
to
Jordans,
charities, getting married, going to war, having kids,
going to
what if
war.
all of that is a distraction? A distraction from the one guarantee that we all have, our death. This is the idea behind Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death, a Pulitzer Prize-winning anthropological work that places our fear and anxiety surrounding our finitude as the reason behind culture itself. His main argument is woven in 4 strands. Firstly, Becker makes it clear that the world is terrifying. Animals in their natural state regularly engage in
Nature is
tearing others
terrifying.
apart with teeth of all types, biting, grinding flesh, plant stalks, bones between molars, pushing the pulp greedily down the gullet with delight, incorporating its essence into one's own organization, and then excreting with foul stench and gases
Bro, yes. My drill sergeant once said if you don't molest nature, nature might not molest you. Might not.
the residue. Yes, maybe Becker wouldn't be the most fun dude to go camping with, but his point
Why
still
no?
stands. The wild, a brutish state of death and survival isn't something humans really embrace. If anything, we have spent a great
Nope.
deal of our history avoiding the anarchic state of nature, building laws, institutions, and a supply chain so as to never have to really worry about our own needs. Nonetheless, the threat of death can never be truly extinguished. A small lump, a recurring cough, a car accident, and even the simple thought that we are here merely to die. All of these are unavoidable and outside of
Bro,
our
I don't know why I
control.
want to laugh.
The state of being in this world appears to be one always on the verge of death. Here, Becker refers to William James, the worm at the core, the nagging intuition that we all carry in our hearts, that all of this will eventually end. Becker agrees, believing that the terror of death is universal and present across all cultures. This carries with it some evolutionary logic. In primitive times, those most scared of death were the most realistic about their precarious situation in nature, and thus were more likely to survive. The result would be a higher chance that their genes would be passed on, and thanks to our hypochondriac ancestors, we now have a hyper-anxious animal who constantly invents reasons for anxiety, even where there is none.
Hmm.
This video is sponsored by Polygens.
Oh,
My most treasured experience at university has been research. Just at the time when I was growing pretty bored of flashcards and multiple choice exams, I was lucky enough to join a lab and even get a paper published. One thing,
Hey,
however, was
from
tricky,
a good life
getting
to a good
into
living.
research to begin with. Aside from camping outside of your teacher's office all day, it can be pretty tricky to actually attain research positions, especially when you're in high school and middle school.
He did
That's
that
why
in high
I'm
school?
happy to present Polygens,
Wow.
a research academy that is dedicated to driven students looking for one-on-one mentorship from top-tier academics and practitioners. A high schooler looking to go beyond
Nerds
the
teaching
curriculum,
nerds.
Polygens democratizes research opportunities and lets any student pair with a suitable mentor regardless of background experience. What sort of projects
Okay.
are possible? Well, one I really found interesting was this project on schizophrenia and neuroplasticity written by a high schooler and accepted into the Youth Medical Journal. The paper looks at the role of drug use as a potential variable in tying schizophrenic symptoms with neuroplasticity. Whether it be podcasts, papers, or cool art projects, Polygens looks like the perfect outlet for getting into research. Use my link below to get $250 off of your Polygens program.
Whoa, $250 off. How expensive is this? What the hell? Skip.
Reality we know ourselves. We are naturally helpless, and unlike other animals, we have the ability to imagine our deaths at any time of the day. This anxiety, Becker continues, stems from the existential paradox of the human condition. Man has a symbolic identity that brings him sharply out of nature. He is a symbolic self, a creature with a name, a life history. This immense expansion, this dexterity, gives to man literally the status of a small god in nature. Yet, at the same time, as the Eastern sages also knew, man is a worm and food for worms. This is the paradox. He is out of nature and hopelessly in it. We are
You're
so
forever in
complicated
nature.
and yearn to grow and
Nature is
realize our
everything.
potentials, and yet we know it will all end. To deal with this, let's look at the third strand. We deny death and keep it unconscious. This is what Becker defines as the vital lie of character. We cannot accept the fact that we are helpless, that all of this appears for nothing, a cruel joke. This character, our personality, is a complex defense mechanism that allows us to feel safe and protected. As written in the foreword, we repress our bodies to purchase a soul that time cannot destroy. We sacrifice pleasure to buy immortality. We encapsulate ourselves to avoid death. And life escapes us while we huddle within the defended fortress of character.
Hmm.
Society is an extension of this line of defense. Religions, political ideologies, sports teams all provide us with sturdy
Bruh.
hero systems where participation ensures symbolic immortality. Religion may promise an afterlife, allowing us to manage our death anxiety and continue to deny it. As long as we
It'll make you
pray
feel
and do this
all
or
better.
that, we will transcend our biological limits. The corporate success ladder tells us that financial success or career competence will symbolically protect us from death, so we may live on in the history of the company. On a biological level, having kids can be seen as an
As
attempt
long
to
as the company
transcend our
lasts.
biological mortality, an attempt to extend our genetic lineage, to keep a little bit of us still going. Man could strut and boast all he wanted, but really drew his courage to be from a god, a string of sexual conquests, a big brother, a flag, the proletariat, and the fetish of money and the size of a bank balance.
Hmm.
This urge to heroism, to be remembered as worthy, can be considered as a form of narcissism. Naturally,
It
we care about
definitely
ourselves
is.
above all else, because we would like to see ourselves as heroes, to prove that we count in the face of the void. This is measured by our self-worth, the motivating force behind narcissism, which is constituted symbolically. And so we attach ourselves so firmly to the world of symbols, of
Yep.
work, religion,
My
social
job,
games,
my
and so
car,
forth.
my
For
money. Yep.
Becker, society has always been
My
a
stats.
symbolic action
Yep.
system, a structure of statuses and roles, customs and rules for behavior, designed to serve as a vehicle for earthly heroism. Notably, each culture has a different script for their heroes, different gods, different values, different ideas of what is pure and what is sacrilegious. As Becker writes, what the anthropologists call cultural relativity is thus really the relativity of hero systems. And this is inevitably where we run into problems. Not everybody can be a hero, and to deny my
True.
idea of what will make me immortal is horrid. Either I'm right and you're wrong, or I'm destined to become worm food, and that's that. Everything that man does is religious and heroic, and yet in danger of being fictitious and fallible. The presence of other hero systems puts ours in danger, and this is Becker's main message, that our denial of death and the hero systems that emerge as a defense allow us to justify great acts of evil. It is one god against the other, all in the name of a heroic self-image that supports our narcissism, that keeps up the grand illusion that we can surmount our death. For Becker, human beings
Another one like that is the thought of going to Valhalla after going into a big battle and fighting with everything you got. Yep.
do not commit acts of evil out of wickedness, but out of weakness. This science of evil almost deserves a separate video. But let's return to the vital lie of character. How should one live? Are we all destined to be selfish, death-denying wannabe heroes? There is a brutal irony to this defense against our anxiety. In our desire to transcend death, we rarely get a chance to actually live. It is fateful and ironic how the lie we need in order to live dooms us to a life that is never really ours.
Damn, that's deep as hell. That is super deep. But at the same time, you can't really deny that fact. What do we do to live? We work. We live to work until we work to live. Eventually, we all grow old, and there's nothing for us to do. But sitting around and doing nothing leads to more existential crisis, which is why people in their old age still work. How many people do you know that are like 60 years old still doing some type of work? 70 years old still trying to do some type of work, whether it's making them money or not, regardless, right? A lot of the elderly still do things like knitting or whatever old people do, crochet or something, right? We always keep doing something until we can't do anything else.
But to shed our character armor is to risk death and madness. It makes sense as to why many choose the quote unquote easier path. But for those interested in seeing reality and experiencing life as is, Becker offers an answer. Ancient wisdom refers to the process of death and rebirth as the way in which one can see reality as it is, to free oneself and come back, unchained from the shackles of character. To be born again means to actively confront the paradox of the human condition for the first time, to see us as a god worm or god who defecates. Becker asks, what would the average man do with a full consciousness of absurdity? He speaks of Maslow's self-actualization and how it requires a sort of being cognition, which is seen as an openness of perception to the truth of the world, the good and the bad. To engage in this is terrifying and potentially devastating. It places a trembling animal at the mercy of the entire cosmos and the problem of the meaning of it. In the face of such devastation, man tends to resort to one of three of Kierkegaard's characters. The immediate cultural individual reserves themselves to trivial matters, goes to work, drinks with friends, spends their leisure away unquestionably. The introvert feels confident in that they are in some way different from the world, that they are special and can't simply express their specialness to others as they will not understand, and so they hold themselves apart from the world. And so he lives in a kind of incognito, content to toy in his periodic solitudes with the idea of who he might really be, content to insist on a little difference to pride himself on a vaguely felt superiority. And then there is the self-created man, or wannabe god,
I
or
am my
hedonist,
fate.
who plunges into life in a demonic rage. They may seek forgetfulness and temporal pleasures where one
I
lives
want to
for the
get
day
tied down.
alone with a defiance of tomorrow. Or they may engage in a sort of Prometheanism, a thoughtless
I will
immersion in the
save the
project of
world.
becoming God through engaging in war, arms races, capital accumulation, a rage against our impotence, a defiance of our animal condition, our pathetic creature limitations.
And
Okay,
that's exactly all it is, a defiance. You want to save the world. There's something stopping us. We can do it. Yeah. Savior complex. People try and save the world by destroying others. Some people try to save the world by uplifting others. You know, it's a means to an end for some. So, fuck it, I guess.
so we're avoiding the question how to cope, how to live truthfully.
Everyone copes differently.
Well, it's easier said than done. The
That
healthy
is also
person,
true.
the true individual, the self realized soul, is the one who has transcended himself.
Mm.
How does one transcend himself? By realizing the truth of his situation, by dispelling the lie of his character, by breaking his spirit out of its conditioned prison. Isn't this impossible? We transcend ourselves only to realize we are mortal animals.
Um, I think it's definitely like on a spectrum, right? Like to transform yourself, to transcend yourself, right? To acknowledge and accept the cruel hand of fate that we're all dealt. Like we're all dealt a set of a hand of cards, right? From your skin tone to where you grew up to the time period you grew up, right? We're all dealt these hand of cards, but we all have that one card that's in the deck somewhere, right? After you play your cards, like, oh, your teenage card, you're no longer a teenager, you get a new card from the deck, right? And the deck is always being shuffled at all times, but there's always that one card of death in there. When will the card of death show up? We try not to think about it. We keep doing all these other things to try and fulfill ourselves. We go travel the world and take photos. We eat exotic things. We meet different people and bounce ideas off of each other. For what? because it's something to do. It's something that keeps our mind preoccupied. Not everybody can sit comfortable with the idea of everything that is in our being is going to stop existing. And the only thing that lives on is memories, genetics, and that's about it. We try and come up with other things to keep our image alive, like a legacy, right? And when you think about legacy, you think about someone like Miyamoto Musashi, right? Somebody that's well respected across the entire earth. And all we have to go off of is stories of how great this man once was that lived. But at the end of the day, this man has been gone for so long, right? Even though his words and his teachings definitely help a lot of people, none of us know Miyamoto Musashi. None of us have ever met this man. We go by stories and word of mouth. Eventually, those stories and word of mouth can be transformed to a point where they're no longer the same Miyamoto Musashi, which I wouldn't be surprised, which has already happened, right? It's said that this man has had 60 duels and he won each one, and a majority of these were to the death. Is it true? Well, people say it's true. I don't know, right? None of us truly know. We just go based off stories. But stories have been known to been embellished, especially throughout time. But supposedly this man still existed, right? So it's something that definitely um, resonates with, I don't know if it resonates with everybody, right? I'm sure not everybody cares about living a legacy. Some people just want to live a fruitful life for themselves, and then when they die, right? I admire that greatly. Um, but other people, they need something else. They need some type of reassurance that, hey, I lived a good life. I did a good thing. I did something so well that others remember me. But why does that matter? I couldn't tell you. I honestly couldn't. Why does it matter if you're remembered after you die? You're dead. Because it'll help somebody else? Cool, but you're dead. Right? It's an interesting conversation. I like it. Let's continue the video though.
Doesn't this guarantee madness? Kierkegaard and
Yes and
Becker
no.
want
Yes and no. It will definitely make you mad, but within that madness lies a grain of truth. The truth is what lies in that madness. So what do I mean? Uh, Everyone's going to die. Cool. Everyone's gonna die. Okay. Everyone's gonna die. Why do you keep saying it? Because it's true. Not everybody likes the truth, but it's something we all have to accept. And we all accept it at later points in life. Some people, when they're young, they're naive. They're like, oh, death? Okay, I don't understand. And then maybe they hit their teenage years. Everyone's gonna die. You're gonna die. Da, 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 da. Yeah, we know that. Why are you telling everybody? Because they just found out what death actually is. But to the 60-year-old, the 70-year-old, the people that are actually inching closer to death way faster than the 15, 16, 20, 25, 26-year-old, obviously they've heard the song and dance of death so many times that they don't really care to participate in it. They care about living the rest of their existence. That being said, the 20-year-old should also be living their existence as well. The 10-year-old should be living their existence. Everybody has remember the card is always in there. It's always in the deck being shuffled, right? So you enjoy it while you don't have that card of death, but constantly bringing it up and thinking about it, it might make you feel more okay with your existence, but it makes other people terrified, or it makes other people annoyed, or it makes other people say, huh, maybe I should do something with my life instead of just doing something that is getting me by or doing something that I don't truly enjoy. and then they start thinking about it. I think the more that we think about the inevitable, of course, it's going to make people go insane. How could you not go insane knowing that everything eventually ends? Well, in this insanity, we come up with things to make us feel better. Like, what if something good happens at the end? Better than thinking about nothing that happens at the end, right? I once saw a video, and this guy said he's not scared of death, he's scared of not living. The fear of missing out on life outweighs his fear of non existence. Now, that's some terrifying shit if you ask me. But what can you do about it? Let's continue.
Us to push through this madness, this school of anxiety that will destroy our vital lie of character completely. The self, the defense mechanism against our existential dread, must be entirely disposed of. Only then can it see beyond death. And what is beyond death? Kierkegaard answers to infinitude, to absolute transcendence, to the ultimate power of creation which made finite creatures. You open yourself up to the world in all its beauty.
Or you could just keep it real with everybody and just say nothing. But not everybody likes that answer. So, of course, you got to put a little bow on it. To transcend the existence and the creation of all things, beginning and end, Alpha and Omega, before everything exists in one solid point. The end of life is truth, and it may lead to a door of existence beyond the imagination and comprehension of all cognition, or nothing. Hmm.
And ugliness. Despite one's true insignificance, weakness, death, one's existence has meaning in some ultimate sense because it exists within an eternal and infinite scheme of things brought about and maintained to some kind of design by some creative force. This
Hopefully.
isn't an appeal to a god, it's an appeal to the fact that anything exists at all, and that it continues to exist, and that you're a part of it. The
That
invisible
we are.
mystery at the heart
I'll
of
drink
every
to that.
creature now attains cosmic significance by affirming its connection with the invisible mystery at the heart of creation. This is the meaning of faith. You aren't this isolated unit that needs to prove to the world that you're actually a god, that you actually matter. You already do. And your uniqueness and potentialities and creative urges contribute to this crazy, eternal world. So take a deep breath, get over yourself, find true courage in the face of anxiety. And yeah, sure, maybe people will look at you weird, but that's just your denial of death talking.
This is a great video. All right, so what did you guys get from the video? I got everything that I didn't understand from a different perspective, right? So, I've had my own life experiences with existential crises, minor and major, right? And at the end of it, I came out okay, right? Um, Others, I don't know. I never really thought about it, right? Because I've only been me. I can only, you know, try and put myself in in someone else's shoes, but I can only, go to a certain extent. So this is where I say in the comments below, give us any stories you'd like about any existential crises, or how did you come out from it, or if you haven't had one yet, or if you are thinking that you might have one day, let us know, share it. I mean, we're all humans, we're all trying to figure out our own consciousness, right? Remember, at the end of the day, you're just a brain, okay? This human body is just a body, right? The body, I think it has its own will, right? The body wants to survive. Like if you hold your breath long enough and try and die, the body will automatically breathe, right? But you are just a brain inside of a skull. Inside this brain is a consciousness. The consciousness is shared, I think. I think it's shared, right? With like your ego and all this other stuff, right? but it's all shared in this one thing that we call the consciousness, right? Remember that. Remember that. Remember that. You're not just your name. You're not just Sean. You're not just Gray. You're not just chaotic. You're not just you. You are something deeper, but at the same time, you are still just in this brain. Depending on how big it is, doesn't matter. It's only about this big, okay? It ain't bigger than that. Or if it is, damn. But yeah, it was a great video. We'll check out more. Why not? See you guys on the next one. Bye bye.